Welcome to the College Football X with your hosts, Jon Nelson and John Wilkerson.
Welcome to another round of the OSG on CFB. It's time for the X, where we take a look at all the X factors and everything else going on as we get you ready for this week in college football. Obviously, we'll take a peek at Georgia and Alabama. Dave Nitz, the play-by-play voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, will join us as well, as they have a big game this week. So it's Wilkie, it's J-Dub, it's me, just John, it's you, and all of our guests. It's the X coming up just around the corner.
The OSG Sports app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. All you got to do, install the OSG Sports app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Let's get this done. Get the OSG Sports app today.
You are listening to the College Football X on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
And Chris Mooneyham from 680 The Fan, the official fan station of the Georgia Bulldogs, joins us. Talk a little Georgia, Alabama. And, what was it, 2018, when they met for the national championship in the city for which we live in, Atlanta, Georgia. That was SEC Nirvana. So I think we're going to get another dose of that. Maybe not the heavy dose we got back then, but with everything that's gone on with COVID-19, whether the season was going to happen, we get a game that's colossal. And in some ways, it's SEC Nirvana.
And so far, probably the biggest game of the regular season in this COVID era 2020 college football season. Everyone, as you mentioned, we're based out of Atlanta. We cover the entire country in myriad sports and into North America, the rest of North America. But you're right, we're based here in Atlanta, and the city is not just on fire for the Braves right now, but of course the other topic of sports dominance conversationally is about this football game. Really excited to see it. Anytime Alabama and Georgia get together, it is a special occasion for those that are listening outside of the Southeast and maybe aren't aware. Georgia and Alabama don't get together as much as you would imagine. This will only be, let me make sure I've got the number here in front of me. As a matter of fact, the 70th time that these two programs have gotten together, and of course their football programs date back into the 1800s. This is another topic of conversation every time they get together, in that it is special because very often throughout the history of these two programs, they've gone 5, 6, 7, 8 years without meeting. And not just in the modern day of the SEC, where the SEC handles the scheduling and they're in cross divisions, but even back in the old days, they would go 8 years without meeting each other for myriad reasons. So it's special anytime they get together.
Yeah, let's just say there's no love lost between the two programs over the years, which is one reason why they didn't get together so often as you'd expect. But when they do, it's special, and this appears to be another special occasion. This is Nick Saban gets a chance to go up against one of his proteges again, which he always beats down the coaches that have been under his purview and then moved on to a head coaching job. I mean, he's still undefeated against some of his old assistants. Kirby Smart gets a chance to break that streak. I want to go back to the Ole Miss-Alabama game last week. That's probably the worst I've ever seen a Nick Saban-era defense. And I'm sure it was not fun at practice this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they're going to be working hard during this week, defensively especially. I think they're on pace. I did not iron out this exact number in the interest of full disclosure, but I think I'm pretty close. I believe they're on pace right now to, and again, we're only three ball games into the year, obviously, but they're either on pace, the Alabama defense, or very close to being on pace to allowing the most yards per ball game defensively that they ever have, as you mentioned, in the Saban era. I mean, I have the numbers in front of me, 322 passing and 151 rushing per ball game they're allowing so far. The one that sticks out to me most of all is the 151 rushing, which could play into Georgia's hands. I don't know that either team is going to run the football very well in this ball game, quite honestly. I think Alabama will be ready for it, forcing Stetson Bennett to beat them. And obviously Georgia has perhaps the best defense in college football this year. So I'd expect a little bit lower scoring game than I think some of my contemporaries do.
I mean, for a football purist like you and I, just watching the two lines go at it will be part of the price of admission for me.
Yeah, it's grown man football, as we've used the phrase many times. It's going to be grown man football. It's going to be really interesting to see. Georgia just had Azeez Ojulari be named SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week, former Marietta Blue Devil here in the metro Atlanta area. One of a couple of talented Ojulari brothers that are playing college football. I think that's where the game will, for the most part, be decided. Obviously, a lot of the focus will be on Mac Jones throwing the football. He's been dynamic this year. He's been absolutely incredible. What is he, number 2 in American completion percentage? He's averaging over, 365 is the number I have here per ball game. He's tops in the nation in quarterback rating as well. I think the big thing will be, some people will say Mac against the secondary for Georgia, which has been either really good this year or has struggled a little bit. But for me, it's about getting pressure on the quarterback. And it looks like on Mac Jones from the defensive line for Georgia. And it looks like Georgia is going to be doing that on the whole here in 2020. A little bit better than they have over the last few years, especially since the run to the state championship, the national championship game. Yeah,
and if Georgia is successful with that pass rush, you got to think guys like Miller Forstall will be huge. The tight end for Alabama, he'll be a huge safety foul for Mac Jones, and then Najee Harris, who's coming off that career game against Ole Miss. He's going to have to be out in the flat and catch some passes here and there, or even if he can find some wiggle room. But that Georgia defense just doesn't give you very many holes to run through, much less they don't arm tackle people either. They're in front of you. And so it's going to be hard for Najee Harris to get those 2 or 3 extra yards that he's used to getting.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to the tight end conversation, because you took the words right out of my mouth. I think that's another big key for me in this ball game on both sides of the ledger, because I think the run games for both teams, for the most part, are going to be held in check. And I think that Georgia will do a fine job of shelling defensively to hold down Devontae Smith and the Waddle kid, Jalen Waddle, for the most part. So I think the tight ends are going to be key. As you said, Miller Forstall has shown that he might be a National Football League tight end. And so finding him on the seam, finding him out the dump pass, the safety valve could be very important. And then, of course, they have struggled, Alabama has, on the defensive side of the football against tight ends. The Ole Miss kid had himself a big ball game. What did he have? 180 yards, I think, and a couple of touchdowns last Saturday. Texas A&M did pretty well tight end-wise against the Tide defensively. And Georgia has shown that they are starting to target their tight ends at a high level. The third most targets or the second most targets for Georgia this year have been to the tight ends with Fitzpatrick and Trey McKitty, of course, who came in during the offseason, the graduate transfer. So I think that's going to be just a massive key in this ball game.
I agree, and it's just a shame that there's going to be only 25% capacity at Bryant-Denny on Saturday night, because with all the elements in play here, Saturday night, Alabama, Georgia, 2 versus 3, SEC, the top of the SEC on the line. It's just a shame that we're going to have a less than capacity crowd. However, it still gets pretty darn loud.
Well, right, and that's exactly what I was about to say. Man, we are simpatico this afternoon. I was about to say the exact same thing. That's the thing about it, though, and been part of the topic storyline, hasn't it? Throughout college football, and especially in the SEC, even with these stadiums packed to 20, 25, 30, 35% capacity, still the crowds have been just absolutely unbelievable, and especially in the SEC. And that's no big surprise with the fan base that the SEC brings in every stadium, even in the lower rung of programs in the SEC. I would expect Bryant-Denny to be extremely loud, extremely vocal, that crowd. But then that leads us into the conversation of Stetson Bennett, and obviously Stetson Bennett is what makes him so great is he is an intuitive kid. He's incredibly smart. He comes from a football family. He's calm, he's cool, he's collected. He's not going to waver under any pressure that comes his way from the crowd and the crowd noise.
Now, I really don't have a dog in this fight, so this is one of those rare games where I really don't want to pick a winner. I want to sit back and watch the two teams hash it out, and may the best team win.
Well, I guess I might give you my first prediction of the week. I haven't been on air yet to throw it out there. Let's see. I think Alabama wins the football game. I pegged Georgia as a 2-loss team in totality this year, perhaps 3. But I did not figure that the defense would be as dominant as they have been. I thought they would be a top 10 defense nationally, but it looks like they could be top 3 by the end of the year. I think still the smart money is on Alabama, quite obviously. And then those of us who are in the Southeast and have seen these teams in every ball game, every snap of every ball game, I do believe it's going to be a closer ball game than a lot of other people have pegged. I'm going to say Alabama probably wins the football game. Let's go 23-17. A 23-16 type ball game. But if either of these teams gets to 28 or 30, first one to 28 or 30 almost certainly wins this ball game. But I'd expect it to be both teams south of about 24.
And I expect to see an inspired effort by the Alabama defense after giving up, 45, 46 points to Ole Miss last week. I think that's the key to Alabama. But man, Georgia's got those offensive weapons too. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to sit down on my couch with a cold beverage and just watch them go at it and just enjoy some SEC football, Chris Mooneyham.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have a show on Saturday, coming up this Saturday, to where I can actually sit down and watch it as well and not have to break it down live on the air, or maybe break it down after the ball game's over and not get to sit and enjoy it either. But it's going to be something. This is the type of ball game, as you mentioned at the very top, where if you're living in Oregon or you're living in Michigan or you're in Southern California or you're in, well, wherever, if you're in Maine and you love college football, this is a ball game you're going to want to take in, because it will help to define how this 2020 season unfolds across the landscape of college football. It's going to be fun.
You're right, sir. Okay, tell the masses where they can hear you.
Well, you can hear me on 680 The Fan, 93.7 FM in the local Atlanta area. You can join us on the 680 The Fan mobile app. Join us at 680thefan.com. Or at our sister station at Extra 106.3 FM, 1230 AM in the Metro Atlanta area, and on the Extra app. You can find me on Twitter at Mooneyham on air.
And if you want to enjoy a good show, I really suggest you listen to Chris. God knows what he's talking about. Chris Mooneyham, thanks for joining us on the College Football X.
Always my pleasure, John.
All right, much more to come when we come back.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today. You're listening to the College Football X on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Welcome back to the OSG on CFB. It's the College Football X, and one of our X Factors this week comes to us from Louisiana Tech, the play-by-play voice of Louisiana Tech, Dave Nitz, hanging out with us on the show. Dave, thanks for being a part of the X this week.
Well, thanks, John. Appreciate you getting in touch with me.
All right, so when you look back at, I guess, the offseason, getting into having a football season, how much of a challenge has it been for Louisiana Tech this year?
Well, it's been really a big challenge because, we didn't have spring football. They started to have spring football, then about the 12th or 13th of March, they had to shut it down, and then had some summer workouts, had to shut that down, and then started in August, they were going to go some practices, and that was shut down. So they played our first game, or was supposed to play our first game at UNLV the first weekend of September. That was canceled. And then we were supposed to play at Baylor. That game was postponed, or actually ended up being canceled. So then Southern Miss, we moved the Southern Miss game into where the Baylor game was. Southern Miss was supposed to be like on the 17th of September. So the conference moved that game around for us so we could get that conference game in. And we were supposed to have a home game with a 1AA opponent. I think it was the second weekend of September. Well, that was postponed. They couldn't, because of the COVID-19, they couldn't play. So we had to replace them with Houston Baptist, but we couldn't play them until the I think it was like the third weekend of September. So it's been crazy. I mean, from one week to another, I'd hate to be a coach this time of year because you don't know who you have playing. You don't know who you're going to play or where you're going to play them. And it's been just a crazy 2020 season from start the end,
so
whatever the end will be.
Really? So basically you're saying everything has been written in pen, yeah, no. Everything has been in pencil or dry erase ever since everything started.
Yeah, everything has been erased. Just keep it. And, we're supposed to play Rice here at the end of the month. They haven't even played a game yet. And somebody said they haven't even started practicing. So I don't know if that game will be played. That's the last weekend of October, a conference game. So we don't know what that situation is going to be. We won't know, I guess, until the week before the game or maybe a few days.
So you look at the win against Southern Miss, the win against Houston Baptist, the loss to 22-ranked BYU at the time, and then the win against UTEP. Where do you think Louisiana Tech is right now as a football team where you sit at 3-1?
Well, I think our defense has really kind of stepped up in carrying us. They actually was the big plays that we made on Saturday against UTEP in that 21-17. Our offense was not very good. Matter of fact, Skip said it was the worst offensive performance he has seen since he's been at Louisiana Tech. We just could not move the ball against UTEP. They brought in a couple of junior college defensive tackles that just really dominated the game, plus a defensive end that just gave us fits all night long. We were able to throw the ball a little bit, but not with the consistency that we were normally looking for, because quarterback he's a transfer from Abilene Christian, a 1AA program or FCS program, and he had problems getting rid of the football, and with the rush that UTEP put on, so we were struggling even in our passing game. We were able to hit some passes that able to get us going downfield, and scored a couple of touchdowns and ended up winning at 21-17. But where we are right now, I don't know. We had two offensive tackles that were out because of the COVID-19 last week, and Skip said this week that he was expecting those two to be back. I don't know if it was actually COVID-19 or the tracing that they call. I'm not sure, but he's hoping they may be back, and probably won't know that until Friday. Last week he didn't know until Friday afternoon that he wasn't going to have those two offensive tackles. So we were playing backup guys and freshmen at those two positions, and it wasn't very pretty, to say the least.
5 o'clock local time, or 5 o'clock Eastern. Now you've got Marshall coming to town for Military Appreciation Day at Joe IA. What has the talk been with Marshall coming to town?
Well, it's going to be a struggle. I mean, Marshall is 3-0, and they're 1-0 in conference play. They beat Western Kentucky on the road last week. So it's two undefeated teams in conference play. They're in the Eastern Division, and Tech is in the Western Division. Somebody said, well, this could be a preview of what the conference championship game could be like. But, of course, we got a lot of games to play between then and, the first weekend of December. So I don't know if you could put it that way or not. But Marshall is a team that's got really a good running back in Brandon Knox and a freshman quarterback that has really stepped in and done an outstanding job for them. So I think, for entertainment purposes only, I think they're favored by 15 points on the road. So that tells you what the people, the folks in Vegas think of Marshall as far as what they could do.
When it comes to the folks in Ruston, for those who haven't had the chance to see the Bulldogs play this year, what would be Louisiana Tech 101 when it comes to keeping an eye on this game from your perspective?
I think we're going to have to run the football. I really do. I think run the football and be able to open up some passing lanes for us. I think those are the two keys for us to be able to be successful against Marshall and to shut down their running game. Knox has been their bell cow, so to speak, and their freshman quarterback, I don't know how much pressure he has suffered this year and being able to throw under pressure or not, but I think you have to give, you talk about a young freshman, you have to give him some pressure. Don't give him all the time in the world back there in the pocket. So those are some of the things that we can look for this weekend.
Dave Nitz, the play-by-play voice of Louisiana Tech, hanging out with us here on the OSG on CFB, one of our X Factor interviews for the week. Now, for Louisiana Tech, who's in your spot shadow? Who has to be successful? Who has to do their job well this weekend for Louisiana Tech to get the Duke?
I think the biggest thing, I go back to our two tackles. I think those are the two that we have to spotlight on. If our two starting tackles are returning, I think those are a key to the game for our passing and our running. You know, if they're able to block Marshall, and Marshall held Appalachian State to 7 points, and Appalachian State was in the top 25 at that particular point. And Marshall beat them like 17-7. Marshall didn't score a lot of points, but they didn't allow any either. So I think our two tackles, if they are back, I think that's the key to the game for Tech this weekend.
When it comes to folks going in the door, what's the current situation for capacity and social distancing and all that at Joe IA?
Well, so far this year it's been 25%, which is about 7,000 to 8,000, and then you can add probably they're allowing about 1,000 students in, so that's 7,000 to 8,000 is about what we've had in our two home games we've had so far this season. So it's a lot different than what we normally used to. We're used to having about 25,000. We're not a big population area in the first place, but I think it'd be nice to have 25,000. But I don't foresee that happening this year or this week especially.
All right, time for the blatant plug. For those that want to listen to your call and everything Louisiana Tech going forward, where do they listen? How do they do it?
You can go to latexsports.com and listen live to our flagship station is 107.5 FM, and I think you go to 107 or X or what is it? Yeah, KXKZFM.com, and you can hear the broadcast. We go on the air at an hour and a half before kickoff, which would be 3:30 Central Time. 4:30, I guess, Eastern Time on Saturday. So, and the game is also, I don't know if it's going to be televised. I haven't seen exactly where it's going to be televised.
Looks like CBS Sports Network.
CBS Sports Network, okay. You know more about that than I do.
I'm just staring. I'm doing searches, and it's like, all right, so what can I find out quick?
I don't keep up with the TV. I do well enough. 46 years doing radio broadcast for Tech. I try to keep up with that as much as I possibly can.
Dave Nitz, play-by-play voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. Louisiana Tech and Marshall, big game in Conference USA this weekend at Joe IA there in Ruston. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the X. Have a great call. May everything stick to the discs and the computers, and we'll be listening, and we'll catch up with you down the line. Thanks for hanging out with us on the X.
Okay. Thanks for calling. Thanks.
When we come back, the tour around the OSG on CFB and the X continues. You're listening on the OSG Sports Network. We'll be right back after this.
Like the voice you're hearing on this podcast? It could be on your production, too. Just go to goodpipesvo.com. That's goodpipesvo.com and reach out to Steve Henderson on the Contact Us page. Go to the website, click on the Contact Us page, and then see what Steve's Good Pipes can do for your upcoming project.
Time to put a bow on yet another show for the OSG on CFB. It is the X. It is another round of what is going on. Cancellations in the Southeastern Conference. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that as well. LSU and Florida to the front of the table, and keeping an eye on everything else going on around an ever-changing landscape when it comes to scheduling on a weekly basis. So as we were talking with Dave Nitz earlier in the show, everything is scheduled in pencil and on dry erase board. So just kind of keep your head on a swivel and be patient with your favorite institutions going forward. So for the Stereo J-Dubs, for Wilkie, for J-Dub, for Dave Nitz at Louisiana Tech, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us for another round of the OSG on CFB. We'll catch up with you on the weekend with everything that has happened in all of college football. Stick and stay. Play it safe. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the College Football X. You can find this and past shows by downloading the OSG Sports app on your mobile device. And enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.